Hi, Ed Shaniffy with BeyondTheBaselines.com, and thank you for being here and welcome. And today I'm using a title called An Encounter for an Hour. And it came through a podcast I did with my good friend Alan Van Nostrand, who's a director of tennis up at Huntington Crescent Club up in Long Island. And in our podcast, he used that phrase in an hour, or an encounter for an hour, or an hour of power within an encounter. However you want to say it, it's an encounter and it's an hour together. And that's what a private lesson on the golf course, on the squash court, on a tennis court, on a paddle court, whatever court or course you're on, it's the encounter. And sometimes now it's for an hour and a half, but it's really for an hour. And how can you make that hour special, truly special, and make it a great, wonderful encounter for your member? And I'm going to give you some tips. I've been doing this for a few years and love having new clients and returning members every year on the court. And I think this can be translated to golf. It can be translated to squash, to paddle, to pickle, whatever you teach. I think you can take something away from this. I hope you can. Anyhow, number one is when you get to work, look at your schedule. Know your schedule inside and out. Know when you start. You start at 8, be at the club at least 15 minutes ahead of time. That's industry standard. I've had so many in the younger generation not understanding that, but you should literally be there the latest 15 minutes ahead of your scheduled time to be on court or course or fairway or green. But yeah, know every lesson as well. Know the names first and last of each lesson and know the schedule. Maybe print it out, keep it with you in your back pocket so that you know when you can leave the court for a quick break, grab a coffee, grab water, grab a little restroom break, whatever you need. But know your schedule first thing in the morning. It's not helpful when you are not knowledgeable or cognizant of the next lesson. That lesson's waiting on you. Number one, really, when your lesson arrives, when your client arrives, when your member arrives, ask them. And I take this from the movie Pretty Woman. What's your story? Everybody's got a story, right? So what's their story? Ask them. Where have they played? Who have they played with? And from that, you can deduce a little bit of what they're looking for, because that's going to be the biggest part of our jobs in teaching someone. They may say what they think they need work on, but really a lot of it is what we think they need work on. And then we have to try to walk the tightrope between knowing what they want and knowing what we think they need. But get their story, find out what their story is, and ask them. I do right there after they tell me the story. Hey, I went away for the weekend, Ed. I did this. I played here. Hey, what do you need to work on? What do you think you need to work on? What was weak? What was good? Tell me. And I do this. You can do this as a golf pro while you're doing warm-ups. While they're hitting some warm-up balls. I do it with little mini tennis, so I'm not that far away from them, and we're getting the eye-hand coordination going while they're still talking to me. Again, I call them by their first name if they allow me. If not, I call them by their surname until they say, "Hey, Ed, call me call me Ed, call me Ted," whatever it is. When they're telling you what they think they need work on, listen carefully. I do it too. We all tend on trying to jump the gun and saying, "Hey, I think you need this." Listen to what they say, because sometimes they're right, and oftentimes what they say is partially right and leads to something different that you'll see later in the lesson. And so you can take what they say and put that in your back pocket and make sure that you keep cognizant of it while you're looking at other things they can work at. Anyhow, equipment. When you have your lesson, and this is again going back to the schedule of the day, you got to know all your lessons. If you're out there 4 hours straight, if you have a kid's lesson at 11 and you start at 8, you got to have the red balls wherever they may be, or the orange balls, the green balls, out on the court for those lessons, because you don't want to lose time or make it appear that you're wasting time by going to get those baskets of balls, those different teaching aids for juniors, or teaching aids that you might have on the golf course for straightening out the swing, a swing pattern, or video equipment, all that. If you're going to use video equipment, have it out there, have it ready if you can, because all that is, these people are paying a lot of money for a lesson. You don't want to waste time finding and getting equipment. I find that a lot of pros forget to bring out demos. This is actually something that I write down in the morning with my lesson schedule. Now, I don't teach that much anymore, but I might just teach 3 hours, but I'm going to say, hey, I know that Dottie was looking at that racket. I'm going to have that racket on the court. Or, Dottie didn't play well the other day. Maybe she needs a bigger head. I'll bring the bigger head racket over. So those are things that we can think about before the lesson starts and before the client member shows up. During the warm up, don't watch them carefully. They're warming up. They're already self-conscious. I find that a lot of pros, when whether you're taking out an 8-iron, moving the shot to a wedge to warm up, or whether you're going to work on serves and the first 5 balls are complete flops. I say to my client, hey, I'm not looking at you as you warm up. Just swing away, have fun, warm up that shoulder, get the timing right, because it's not going to be perfect straight out of the gates. And inevitably what happens too is they'll, hey, my serve was really terrible this weekend, and they serve 3 great balls during warm up, and then they're quizzical. So I really don't watch them warm up. I talk to them. I say, hey, what are you thinking about the serve? Have you thought about the timing? I don't actually critique them or really watch them carefully while they're warming up a particular stroke or club, if you're a golf pro. Here's the other thing, and I said this earlier. So they'll say, hey, I want to work on forehands. And then you see that it's not just the forehand. So if you listen carefully, it's the forehand that they're running to. They're not getting to the ball. Or it may be, I need to work on my pitching game, but it actually might be a pitch and run. The lofted pitch is fine, but the pitch and run, you might bring it down and say, hey, you said pitching. Was it the pitch and run that's a problem, or a lofted pitch? And they may tell you. But you may notice that too. And then you can walk that tightrope better, because you're still working on what they want to work on, but you're working on something that they need a little more work on. Finally, I know it seems simple, but follow up. So you have your 7 lessons in a day. What do? You go and do your billing, make sure they're billed correctly as number 1, right? If there are 2 people, make sure that the rate's right for 2. If there's 3 people, it's a 3 and me. Make sure if it's a clinic rate, it's a clinic rate. Make sure your billing is 100% accurate at the end of the day. Don't leave home without it. Second, or don't leave to go home without doing that. Secondly, follow up with a nice, concise email. First of all, thank the member client. Say, hey, Mr. Gonzalez, thank you so much for taking that hour with me. And here you are, hour in a counter. It's an hour. But thank you for taking that hour with me. It's great to have you back on the court. This is what we worked on. We worked on extending your forehand, contact point, foundation, weight distribution, whatever it may be. Give them maybe a couple bullet points and say, these are what we worked on. And then follow it up with what you can work on or what you can think of as you play or towards the next lesson. So it gives them something to go forward with. Because a lot of times people leave a lesson and they say, yeah, it was a great lesson. And then they forget about it. And then it goes dead. And this is a way to keep those thought processes going forward, especially because guess what? You want the member client to come back, and you don't want them just to have one lesson and disappear. So it's another way to communicate and hopefully get them back on the court or course with you. Anyhow, those are my tips. I know there are tips out there that says you have to use their name, 6 times in an hour. If you're really teaching someone, I don't think that's a problem. But those are my tips, and any other tips you may have, please write to me or text me or DM me. I'm on Instagram at Ed Shanaphy Consultant. That's SHANAPHY, and I'm on email at beyondthebaselines@gmail.com, and our website. You can always just visit the website and type a message, www.beyondthebaselines.com. Again, you can always call me too, 508-538-1288. Again, Ed Shanaphy with Beyond the Baselines. I hope you enjoyed these little tidbits, treasures for you to take away, just things to think about when you're out there with your next member client on the course or court.